Hello everyone, I welcome you to the class of business to business marketing. So, this is a new elective which I have floated for the benefit of all students basically from the field of management, commerce, people who are working in the industry, so that they can get a fair amount of idea what business to business marketing is all about, right. So, let me give you a brief what am I going to cover in this course. So, we will talk about the business to business marketing environment, and then what is the model of the business buying behavior or the buyer's behavior in the business market. Then how segmentation, targeting and positioning is done in this market, right. Because we can all understand that business market and consumer market is slightly different. In fact, there is a significant difference between them. How the segmentation has to be done, what is the targeting approach and how you should position your product. One more thing is, for example, people talk about brands. Now, for example, you talk about Hindustan Unilever Limited, you talk about Godrej, you talk about Procter and Gamble. So, these are some brands which come very readily to your mind and your recall value is very high. But when I talk about brands in the B2B market, it is slightly difficult for many people to comprehend, because they might not have seen the products, they might not have used the products, or if they have used also, they might not be discussing it very frequently. So, looking into these things, the question emerges, is brand an important component of the B2B market or not? Should branding be even done in this market? So, this is one question, that pertinent question that comes in this subject. The other things that we will be covering is how the product, new product development happens in the B2B market, right. How pricing is done, right, because we all know pricing plays a very vital role. So, how pricing is done in the B2B market, then how the distribution or availability of the products is done, and by hand even how promotion is done, right. So, all these different elements and including the aspects like demand forecasting is also equally important. So, as a reader or as a student of this course, you should be very clear about how B2B market is different from the B2C market, right. So, one thing that is very often said, that business market is a very is a rational market, right, and this market is different because it has no emotions, is a very little emotions involved in it. It is not an impulsive decision that you take in this market, rather it is on facts and it is highly rational, because the point is, if one mistake happens, then the effect is quite large and it has a cascading effect. So, that is why B2B market is a intelligent man's market, you can say, right, from a marketer's point of view, I would say like that. So, I welcome you all to this course, and in between what I would like to say is that we will introduce some small caselets in the course to make it more enriching, more interesting, so that you can participate with me and try to solve those and try to learn better, right. So, I welcome you again to the course of business to business marketing. So, thank you for joining this course, right. So, let us look at this. So, this is a cycle, right, we all can see a beautiful cycle. Now, but when we talk about a cycle, the first thing that comes to our mind is a, let us say, if you are an Indian, then a Hero cycle or a BSSLR cycle or Avon cycle. But do we even think about it? How is this cycle made and what comprises this cycle, right? So, you can see the cycle has certain different parts, the tubes, the tires, the rim, the handlebar, the seat, right, then the bearings. So, all these are different from each other, right, and when you assemble this together, then you get a beautiful cycle, right. But if you look at the background, then it is something that a general person would not know about it, right. So, where has this tube come from, how where has this tire come from, who is the manufacturer of these rims. So, we do not look at it, generally what we do is we look at the overall cycle. So, that is one thing that is more important from a B2B marketer's point of view, where the B2B marketer deals with these kind of products and he is at the back end, right. So, at staying at the back end, he tries to get all these different products and assemble it and try to help you getting a end product which is directly used by the consumer. Okay. Now, let us see how do you define. So, business markets can be defined as a set of all individuals and organizations that acquire goods and services that enter into the production of other products or services which are sold, rented or supplied to others. Now, in simple terms, if I would like to explain you is, the business marketer stays at the back end, as I said, background, and tries to gather all those raw materials, working components, parts and all which are given to the supplied to the OEMs, and the OEMs then finally developed a complete product and they sell it to the end consumer, which is generally people like you and me, right, generally, but it could be also organizations. So, when I am talking about customers at the end, so the customer can be you, me, right, can be industries, can be organizations, can be schools, can be colleges, can be hospitals, can be government institutions, can be factories, everyone, right. So, the difference between this business market and consumer market lies in who is basically the buyer, right. So, if the buyer is another business house, another organization, then it is the case of a business market, right. But if it is sold to a single retail consumer, then it comes into the category of consumer market. So, this is the difference, consumer products or consumer markets, right. Okay. Now, look at this example, LMW. Now, Lakshmi Machine Works is a company that produces machines which are sold to textile mills. Now, this textile manufacturers, textile mills use these machines of LMW and produce garments and other things, and the apparel manufacturer also uses these products. So, you can see the chain, the ones from the machine LMW, it goes to the textile mills who produce yarns or other things, and then they give it to the apparel manufacturers who put their brands, like for example, several brands you can think of, Gap, you can think of Louis Phillips, you can think of Van Heusen shirts or anything, right. And finally, it is the end consumer who buys it. So, the end consumer might not be aware the contribution of LMW, Lakshmi Machine Works, for his output that he is carrying in his basket. Okay. So, this is why maybe maximum he knows about is the closest brand, which is the apparel manufacturer, but he is not aware that there are a lot of people involved in this process, like the textile mill and the machine producer. Because of them, this end product is being able to produce this end product. Okay. So, the B2B market is sometimes also called as industrial market, producers market or a business market, right. So, we have seen that it is the set of all individuals and organizations that acquire goods and services that enter into the production of other products and services that are sold, rented or supplied to others. This is the definition, right. And it is a market which is highly concentrated in nature, right. So, you will not see lot of retail customers, you will not see that in the business market, right. It is composed of few large customers and who buy in bulk maybe, right. So, as I just showed you the example of Lakshmi Machine Works, which is a which is located at Coimbatore, India, is a leading textile manufacturing machinery manufacturer whose business markets consist of textile mills in India as well as in other regions like the Asian and other countries, right. Now, these textile mills sell fabrics of cotton or wool to the garment manufacturers who are also the business customers, and finally, this process goes on till a shirt or trouser or a sari or any attire is made, and then the consumer or the individual, which is you and me, will finally buy it, right. So, this is how a normal process of business or industrial market looks like, right. Let us look at some of the B2B products. So, now if you look at it, for example, safety and security products. Now, everyone, all of you are using nowadays antivirus for example, right. So, for antivirus or for home security purposes, certain kind of equipments, devices, So, this come under the category of B2B products, right, because an individual is not directly consuming it, right, he is not consuming it. So, it may be used for a for a colony, for a office, for a factory, anything. So, it comes, the safety and security products are a part of the B2B products. Then you have metal and minerals products, right. You have electronic and communication machines, okay. You have building constructions materials, then you have office equipment and supplies. Now, every office there is a lot of supplies, for example, paper, pins, cartridge. So, they all will be coming under the B2B product category. Fuels and oil products, okay. Then you have industrial gases, textile products, explosives, then you have IT and consulting, right. So, you have famous names like IBM, you have Infosys, you have Wipro, you have Cognizance, you have industrial houses like Siemens. Now, as an end consumer, you can understand that you are not going to buy anything directly from Infosys, right. So, you may be using a product that Infosys develops on its own and sells it to other organizations, which then make some product or some service which is maybe useful for a retail consumer. Otherwise, you and me will not never go to Infosys to buy a product directly for our domestic consumption. Okay. Then you have wrapper manufacturing, right. You have some e-commerce platforms, for example, Udaan, India Mart, right. If you have heard about these organizations, they help you to sell appliances, products across their platform, right. One of the largest companies in the globe is Home Depot, for example. They say they sell lot of their stuff, like it's an Amazon, like an Amazon for the B2B products, right. You see lot of these products from let us say building construction materials to their all kinds of services, everything that you can think of to build a house, to build an office, everything they sell it on their platform. Commercial vehicles, for example, lift trucks, earth moving equipments, right, chemicals, Tata Chemicals, if I the names come to my mind, like Tata Chemicals. So, these are some of the products that are very much famous and they are very popular, and besides this I can give you few more examples like valves, bearings, industrial pipes, then temperature control devices, then precision instruments, steel, conveyor belts, assemblers, exhausts. So, there are even n number of products. Even to some extent you can understand that many of these products in a smaller version that you see in your domestic consumption, the same thing in a larger magnitude or a larger specification, you will see it being used in a industrial consumption, right. For example, fan. Now, domestic we have fans, we also have industrial fans of large sizes, right. We have coolants, so we have coolants, use of coolants in the factories also. Now, this coolant can be used in a refrigerator, the same can be used in large machines in the industry, right. Now, if I give you some now names, for example, let us say some B2B companies, right. So, what are they basically? Iron and steel companies, you have for example JSW, right. Then you have Tata Steel, SAIL, which is the government enterprise in India, SR, Jindal. So, you have lots of these companies which are into the iron and steel, right. So, similarly for if you look at electronic equipments manufacturing, you have companies like Suraj Electricals, BHEL, ABB, one of the largest in the world, right. Then you have Crompton Greaves, EMCO. So, these are companies which come into the category of the B2B companies, right, which manufacture electrical and electronic parts. Next you have tires and commercial vehicles manufacturers and their items, for example, some of the companies involved are Tata Motors, Balkrishna Industries, one of the a very good company, and then you have Kalyani Bharat Forge. Bharat Forge is one, if I am not wrong, the second largest producer of forging products in the world. Then you have JK Tires, Bridgestone, right. So, these are some examples. A few more if you want to see is in the IT and technology space, you have IBM, HCL, TCS, Tech Mahindra and Wipro, right. So, as we have already discussed, B2B marketing is the process of one business market to supply or produce products and services for another business, right. So, this definition is very important for you to understand, because why? Because the simple reason is that not all products are exclusively different. Some products can be utilized by a retail consumer also, and the same product can be used by can be purchased by an organization also. Let us take a case of a ceiling fan, for example. Now, you may buy a ceiling fan for your home, so that is a retail consumption, but the same thing can be purchased by IIT Roorkee or any other university, right, a large university like in India or anywhere. So, they will have a centralized purchasing. Now, when one organization, let us say IIT Roorkee purchases fans yearly, right, from let us say Havells. Havells is a company. So, I am just giving an example, Havells, it could be any company for that, right. So, when it purchases, so there is a transaction that happens between two business units. So, when the transaction happens between two business units, one organization is a business organization, the other buying organization is also a business organization. In that case, we say it is a B2B marketing, right. Okay. So, why it is needed? Because the output of one company becomes an input for another in order to improve its operations. Okay. Now, let us look at this example. Now, how many of you have heard Vardhaman Textiles? I do not know, but it is a large textile manufacturing company since 1965. Okay. Now, Vardhaman Textiles is manufacturing products like Gap, H&M, Old Navy. So, these are some of the clients for it, right. But few people might be knowing Vardhaman Textiles, and everybody might be knowing, and most of you might be knowing these brands. So, it is very simple and easy to understand that we are more aware about the B2C or the consumer brands, right, but we are not much aware about the industrial or the B2B brands, right. So, this elective in this course, our basic emphasis is to discuss and talk more about this background back end operations or the people who are involved in the back end, and what is their role and how important they are in the entire consumption process. Okay. Some more examples. So, this is I think many of you might be having an Apple phone, right. Now, the Apple depends on different companies for its components. Okay. Now, let us see. Now, you have the camera lens comes from Largan Precision Company Limited. So, they get this camera lens from this company. Then you have display from Sharp and LG. Okay. Now, metal case from Catcher, and they have the microprocessor from Samsung. So, now one Apple phone which we are using maybe has so many different parts of which we are less interested or least interested, or we do not show interest, right. But the Apple phone is nothing but a combination or an assembly of all these different items, right. So, you can understand that for Apple to manufacture its products, right, these companies are very important, and these companies, they are part of the business to business marketing, right. Similarly, if you look at the SaaS software, right, as a service a component, if you see now ERP, accounting softwares, right, payment providers, project management, data management, etc. These are different services that you get, right, and they provide you different services. So, all these are different services that are generally used by manufacturers and different companies, again large industries, because it helps them to systemize their production processes, to streamline their entire different functional units. So, today most of the companies are using this kind of services for their to optimize their efforts, right, and to increase their profits. Let us take this example of Dell, where I will try to explain how B2C and B2B is different, right. Now, when Dell sells the product directly to you and me, it is a case of a B2C, but when Dell sells it to, let us say IIT or a university or a hospital, all the computers, right, or even a company like Reliance or anybody. So, that is the case of B2B, right. So, many companies have customers which are both end consumers directly, the retail consumers like us, and also the organizations. So, in this case if you see B2C, you have individuals and households. Okay. So, the products which they buy are, let us say, like PCs, printers, simple services, and consumer electronic items. And when you come to B2B, the businesses, institutions and government basically largely. So, you have enterprise storage, servers, complex services, right, and other offerings. So, this is generally the difference, and you will be surprised to know that companies who are catering to both B2C and B2B consumers, the amount of revenue that they generate from the B2B counterpart is very high in comparison to the B2C revenue. So, that is why it is very important for us to understand that how B2B is important and vital for any organization for its growth, right. And if you are a student, let us say, of management or any other course, let me tell you, most of you will be working in the space of B2B. Why? Because you are not going to sell a product to a household, right, very rare, but otherwise generally you will be selling it to another organization, maybe which or any dealer or distributor, which also is a part of the B2B, not B2C. So, if I say in a small way that most of the young guys, young friends and people who are working, they actually are working in the B2B space, and very less chances are there that you will be directly encountering the B2C, right. Now, the question comes, which is bigger in size, B2C or B2B? By at this time, by through the way I have explained, I think you must have got some idea whether B2C is a larger market or B2B is a larger market, right. So, in this condition you will see that B2C is actually comparatively very small, right, and B2B is quite large, right. Let us see. So, I have brought this, if you can see, does your organization market its product services mainly to other businesses or directly to consumers, right. So, if you look at, this is a graph which talks about the US Bureau of Economic Analysis, which tells about the B2C market size, right, from 2006 to 2018. So, this was the data I had got. So, and the growth is from not from 2006 before 2006 2005 you can say. So, $8.5 trillion to it moved to $14.2 trillion. So, almost a jump of let us say more than 100%, right, not 100%, slightly less than 100% in between this, in this time period of 10 years, right, 10 to 12 years. On the other hand, if I compare the B2B market, so which is at 14.4 trillion and it goes up to 23.1 trillion. So, in percentage terms, if you see, the growth might be similar or even maybe same, right. But if you look at the absolute value, now there is a growth of almost $9 trillion, right, which is absolutely huge, right. And obviously, you can see the depression in 2010, 8 to 10, that was the time when the crisis, recession had happened in the world, right. So, you can make a comparison that the absolute value has moved from 14.4 trillion to 23.1 trillion, which is almost a 9 trillion jump, right. So, this says that the B2B market is significantly bigger than the B2C market, right. Now, you can see this chain, this example, the ratio of B2B versus B2C is 1.5 is to 1.7 times, right. That means B2B is 1.5 times to 1.7 times the B2C market, right. Why? The simple reason is that B2B has a sales towards the exclusively B2B the organizations, and they do sell it to, let us say, some exclusive, some products are there which are sold both to retailers and organizations, but they actually look like a consumer product. For example, I gave you the example of fan. Now, fan can be considered to be a consumer product, but the same fan or let us say glasses that we use for drinking or even the mineral bottles, right, that you buy during for a conference or anything seminar, they will not be considered a part of the B2C anymore, because now it is being purchased by a B2B, from one organization is buying for a seminar from another organization. That is why the whole value of the B2B market is significantly high than the B2C market. But interestingly, since we are not dealing directly with the B2B companies, we are very little aware, or we are less aware of the B2B companies in comparison to the B2C companies, right. I will stop here and I will continue in the next lecture about the classification of the B2B market or the industrial market, and what is the difference between B2B and B2C, we will see in that, right. So, thank you very much, have a nice time.